Good afternoon, Prairie View Christian Church. Today is Wednesday, June 2nd, and it's time for your midweek update. A few things to run by you really quickly, and then some announcements. As you've seen the past few weeks, we have some changes to share just about every single week, and that is the same this week as well. We do have some changes to bring to your attention. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But first of all, with today being Wednesday, you can expect an email from Nancy momentarily. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you've already seen this video, but many people watch it on YouTube after the fact, and this video will be included in that email. So that email from Nancy will be coming soon. It will also include a devotion. Now this is one change that's worth bringing to your attention. Back when COVID first started, one of the first things that we did is that Zach and I took it upon ourselves to write more devotions to send out during the week. Part of the motivation there was that with people not being in small groups, with people not being at men's breakfasts and women's studies and all the usual things that we did as a church before COVID, we wanted to still give people things outside of Sunday morning. Resources, pieces of teaching, pieces of devotions that could be helpful for people in a season where we weren't spending nearly as much time together. And those devotions have continued long after lockdowns were over a year ago. However, we are going to cut back on those devotions. We have far more people attending church now. Small groups are starting to meet. Women's ministry is starting to put a couple events on the calendar. The men's breakfast is meeting as well. And those devotions take a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of attention. So we are going to start cutting back on those devotions. We are not eliminating them entirely because we do actually enjoy doing them, but it might be a little less pressure to do one every single week. So you'll get a devotion from me today, and then next week you'll have a week away from devotions, and then the week after you'll get a devotion from Zach. And Zach and I will each do one devotion per month. So if you start seeing fewer devotions in your email inbox, now you know why, but you will have one today for June 2nd. Now, on top of that, another thing that will be missing from your Wednesday email starting very soon, in fact starting today, is an RSVP page in some capacity. As we've said the past few weeks, we would like people who have kids to continue RSVPing, but if you do not have kids, you do not need to RSVP. We are still going to have some kids in the sanctuary this coming week. More on that here in just a moment. So if you have kids, RSVPing might still be helpful for Zach to prepare materials. But if you don't have kids, you don't need to RSVP. So that's one less thing for you to worry about in your Wednesday email. We made the change several weeks ago to loosen our mask policy in alignment with the CDC's guidance. We've also, last Sunday, moved our chairs back into sections. And that is happening even more so this week. For one Sunday, we had Kids Kingdom chairs around the sides of the room and regular sections of chairs in the middle. And we're now at a point this coming Sunday where all of our chairs in the sanctuary are going to be back to normal. We'll have a few chairs along the walls, especially for those people who may feel more comfortable sitting over there. But we'll have our three main sections of chairs in the middle. And I heard several people remarking this past Sunday that it was good to see that. It might seem strange and weird and not all that important to some people, but it's nice to be sitting in chairs that are actually attached to somebody else's chair, rather than sitting on your own little chair island in the middle of the sanctuary. So our chairs will be even more back to normal this Sunday than they were this past Sunday, and that is a good thing. Now that takes us to Friday. This Friday is our next men's breakfast. That is at 7 a.m. at Prairie View. With the weather being as warm as it has been now in the month of June, we will likely sit outside. So be prepared to bring a folding chair, a yard chair, whatever kind of chair you want to bring. Bring your own coffee and breakfast as well for 7 a.m. at the men's breakfast. We are continuing in the Gospel of John, and Joe Fenimore leads that conversation. We would love to have you there. Now that takes us to Sunday. The big change this Sunday that we've been talking about the past couple weeks is Kids Kingdom. We are cautiously optimistic that we are going to reopen some of our classrooms for Kids Kingdom this coming Sunday. Now, that being said, we are not going to open every single classroom this week. Part of the reason, if we're being totally honest with you, is that we just don't have the volunteers to do that. Between people who have taken the past 15 months off and don't feel called to teach any longer, from that to people who are traveling. It's summer, it's June, people go on vacations. We simply do not have the volunteers, at least for this week, to open all 4 of our classrooms. So the plan as of right now is to open our Baby Burbs classroom, open the nursery, and babies are welcome in the nursery the entire service. You can drop them off before the service begins, pick them up when the service is over. And we will also open our Toddler Town classroom. That is for ages 2 and 3. Now the Toddler Town classroom, they will not be in their class the entire service. We're trying something new with our order of service starting this week, where toddlers will be in the sanctuary with their families for roughly the first half of the service. They'll be in there for welcome and announcements, they'll be in there for music, they'll be in there for communion and offering, and then they'll be dismissed to their classroom. So this week, nursery's open from beginning to end, and Toddler Town will be open following communion and offering. And then our remaining 2 classrooms, Preschool Patch and Kid City, those will not be open this week. So if you have a preschooler or a kindergarten through 5th grade student, they will be in the sanctuary with us. Now that may be disappointing for you. You may have been hoping that your kids could go back to their classrooms this week. We are still planning to provide kids resources for your kids in the sanctuary. You'll be sitting in normal chairs. We won't have the little kids chairs, little kids stations like we've had for the past year. But we will still have resources for your kids. If you think back to Kid City Sunday before COVID, we would have kids in the sanctuary sitting in the adult chairs with their families, and they would have their little activity bag. They would have their clipboard and their pens and their colors and all that kind of stuff. That will be happening again. So you might pretend that really for the next few weeks at least, this is kind of like one big Kid City Sunday. Our preschoolers, our Kid City kids will be in the sanctuary with their families with kids' activities, sitting in adult chairs. Our nursery is open from beginning to end, and our Toddler Town classroom is open during the second half of the service following communion and offering. Now again, if you're one of those people who's disappointed and thought, man, I really wanted my kids to go back to their classrooms, like we said a minute ago, we'll be honest with you. Part of the reason those classes are not open is due to a lack of volunteers. So if you have been interested in volunteering in the past and you haven't, if you have volunteered in the past and aren't quite sure whether or not you're ready to get back on the horse, we could use the help. We could use the volunteers. I know the people of the church would appreciate it. Those kids would appreciate it, the parents would appreciate it, and the leaders of our church would appreciate it as well. So if you were interested in teaching, whether you've taught before or not, contact Zach and he'd be happy to tell you more. Now again, it would still be helpful, I presume, that if you're going to have kids in the sanctuary with you this Sunday who need kids' activities, having that RSVP might still be helpful. So we're going to leave that page up on the website. Please be sure to RSVP. That way Zach knows how many kids he needs to prepare supplies for. Now, finally, Sunday, we are starting a new sermon series going back to basics, basically just examining who we are as a church and what exactly it is that we're called to do. After 15 months of not being together nearly as much, not doing all the same things that we like to do that help remind us of the basic truths of who we are and what we do, it may be a good time to revisit some of those things. So for the next 4 Sundays, we're going to be talking about who we are as a church and what we do as a church. It's tempting to forget those things after the past 15 months, but we're going to intentionally take time to remind ourselves of them. So that will be this week. We'll be in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 1 through 10 for most of our time, but we'll be in other places of the New Testament as well. And we're also changing up our order of service. Instead of the very awkward, very weird music all crammed at the end of the service, it's going to be a little more balanced, a little more of what we're used to before COVID. We'll have welcome and announcements, and then we'll have our music, And then we'll have our communion and our offering. We'll have our sermon and a few songs sprinkled in there at the end as well. So it'll be a much more normal order of service, which we're excited about. With everything that's changed over the past few weeks, things at Prairie View are starting to look pretty darn close to normal. We're not 100% normal yet, but we're getting much closer, and that's something to be happy about. So that pretty much covers it for today. Wednesday email coming soon. Devotions will be cutting back. If you have kids, please be sure to RSVP. On top of that, men's breakfast on Friday. Sunday, new sermon series, Back to Basics. Chairs are going to be looking a little more normal. Nursery, Baby Burbs, Toddler Town, those classes will be open. The other two classes will not be open, but we will still be sure to provide resources for the kids who are in the sanctuary. That way they can get as much out of the time that we have together in the sanctuary as they possibly can. I think that pretty much covers it for now. We got a couple more events coming up. Monday Night Volleyball really truly kicks off this coming Monday. There's a women's fellowship meal scheduled for Sunday, June 27th, so keep an eye out for that. But really the month of June is just about getting the wheels turning again back at Prairie View Christian Church, especially on Sunday mornings. Getting back to a normal order of service, getting back to our kids' kingdom classrooms. That's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and so we'll have plenty to do in the month of June. So with that, that covers it for our midweek update. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will look forward to seeing you Sunday. Take care.